The miracle doctor won't be a kept man, my heart belongs ashore. Chapter 301. Boss, a couple of speedboats have arrived at Swallow Bay. One of his subordinates reported immediately. Regulus's gaze darted back and forth between the three speedboats on the screen. In the end, he sneered. Is this some kind of diversionary tactic by Kiran York? According to his agreement with Warner, they're supposed to set off at midnight, so they should be at the harbor now. The subordinate muttered thoughtfully. Could it be that Kiran's not on Warner's ship? It doesn't matter. They're all gonna get blown up anyway. Regulus glanced at the remote control in front of him. Once he pressed it, Swallow Bay would be blasted into the sky before sinking to the bottom of the ocean forever. Boss, someone on the speedboat's about to jump into the sea. Just then, the subordinate informed him anxiously. Regulus shifted his attention to the big screen just in time to see a person in a wetsuit on each speedboat getting ready to enter the water. However, he was certain that Kiran was not among them. Slightly confused, he stared unblinkingly at the screen. His men did the same, all keenly searching for Kiran's figure. Unfortunately, they failed to detect anything that suggested his presence. Regulus's gaze turned icy. Shooting a look at his subordinate, he asked, "Does Kiran have forces of his own?" The man shook his head. "I don't think so." "Then, who are these people?" Regulus was perplexed. "Boss, it looks like they're holding some tools. Are they trying to take the explosives apart?" Another man pointed out warily. Regulus's face hardened. Sure enough, the divers were carrying special tools. It was clear that their purpose was not to rescue the victims but to destroy the explosives. Damn it! He snatched up the remote control and made to press it but hesitated at the last second. His goal was to blow up Kiran. If that did not happen, all his preparations would be in vain, and his plan would not be accomplished. However, there was nothing he could do if Kiran did not show up. Eventually, he put the remote control back down. "Keep an eye out for Kiran York." "Yes, boss." His followers answered in unison and stared at the screen intently, trying to find Kiran. To their dismay, there was no sign of him at all. Regulus was in a dilemma. If he pressed the button now, he could blow up Swallow Bay together with the people on the speedboats. But if he failed to kill Kiran, he would have to face the latter's violent revenge. Bam! He slammed his fist on the table, causing the water glass to wobble and throwing the monitoring room into suffocating silence. "They've begun to destroy our explosives," his subordinate observed. Regulus glared at the screen, his eyes blazing. He was unwilling to let his plan be ruined like this. He kept staring at the footage, hoping Kiran would appear. There was still no trace of him. "They've dug out the explosives." His subordinate was getting agitated. Infuriated, Regulus lashed out and sent the man flying. "Shut up! I'm not blind." The man yelped as he crashed into the furniture and sent them toppling to the floor in a heap. He hastily clamped a hand over his mouth, preventing himself from making another sound that could potentially result in his death. Regulus's face was as black as thunder, but he kept his gaze on the screen. "Call Warner and ask him where Kiran is." "Yes, boss." Another subordinate immediately dialed Warner's number. The call went through, but no one picked up. Regulus's scowl deepened. "Call Henry and Theodore." "Yes, boss." The subordinate did as he was told. Still, no one answered. The veins on Regulus's forehead bulged. Was his plan doomed to fail? That was utterly unacceptable. He picked up the remote control again, just when he was about to press it. A cruise ship finally came into view on the cameras. Heaving a sigh of relief, he snapped. That was slower than taking a constipated shit. He gripped the remote control as if it were a talisman of fate, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Is this distance enough to blow up the ship?" "No, boss." His subordinate answered. "Damn you, Kiran York. Can't you get on the island faster?" Regulus growled impatiently. How he wished he could seize Kiran and toss him onto the island, then press the button and blow everything up. The others in the monitoring room watched restlessly as the explosives were being dismantled one by one, but no one dared to speak. As stony-faced Regulus estimated the distance between the cruise ship and Swallow Bay and decided they were close enough. Refusing to wait another second, he jammed his finger into the button and cackled. "See you in another life, Kiran York." Silence. There was no fountain of debris and bodies as he had expected. There was no deafening boom, and the monitor did not black out either. Swallow Bay stood intact on the screen. The ship docked, and those who had arrived first on the speedboats began to help the stranded victims board the ship. The plan had failed. The explosives had been destroyed. Crack. Regulus hurled the remote control on the ground angrily. Fuck you, Kiran York. Where the hell did you get all these people? I fucking hate you. He roared incoherently as his rage boiled over, obscenity spewing from his lips. His followers in the room kept silent, terrified that they would become the target of his wrath. He shot to his feet abruptly. Let's go. We're going to kill everyone there under the cover of night. Yes, boss. His men answered vehemently despite their apprehension. They filed out of the monitoring room. Deftly, they retrieved the emergency boats stored underground and carried them to the beach. Although there were only a handful of boats, they were confident due to the advantage of darkness and their familiarity with the sea. Regulus ordered, later, I'm going to challenge Kiran in public. In the meantime, find a way to get close to the ship, plant explosives on it, and blow it up. Yes, boss. His men picked up their pace. Just when all the boats were finally transported to the beach, they suddenly heard the sound of a speedboat motor. The next second, they saw a figure leap into the air and zoom straight for them. Regulus and his followers were dumbstruck as Kiran appeared before them like a god descending from heaven. Kiran, why are you here? Regulus exclaimed, frozen to the spot. He seemed to have forgotten that he was on his way to kill Kiran. His subordinates' eyes widened in fright. A series of thuds rang out as they tossed the boats aside and eyed Kiran warily. To kill you. In a flash, Kiran landed on the ground, his menacing presence instantly enveloping the entire island. Like a flame doused by water, the bloodthirsty drive of the Wolfgate members vanished. All that was left was the sound of their unsteady and nervous breathing. Regulus glanced around, weighing the situation, before finally looking at Kiran. I didn't know you had so much power in Bayville. Kiran could tell he was afraid but chose not to deceive him. PowerHub Investment Group's the one carrying out the rescue operation. PowerHub Investment Group, Regulus exclaimed. They knew each other. The contempt in Kiran's eyes thickened at the knowledge. Hans Ludwig is the CEO's son. What? Regulus's stocky body began shaking in fear. Chapter 302. Looks like the mighty Regulus Wolf is just a dog, after all. In contrast to Regulus's shock, Kiran was perfectly composed. What did you say? The veins on Regulus's forehead bulged. If PowerHub Investment Group scares you, doesn't that make you a dog? Do you still have the nerve to call yourself a wolf? Kiran jeered. Fuck you. Regulus fumed. I'm not scared of PowerHub Investment Group. Do you know them? Kiran scoffed, clearly unconvinced. Duh. Of course, I know them. Back then, your family was. Regulus suddenly came to his senses and shouted. Don't think you can get any information out of me, Kiran York. I don't need any information from you. Kiran began to approach them calmly. What do you mean? Regulus wanted to know. I know PowerHub Investment Group was behind the York family's downfall. Kiran remained impassive. How did you know? Regulus was baffled. You just told me. Kiran was already less than 3 meters away from them. You're a cunning bastard. Regulus snarled. Kiran replied coolly. I'm not the cunning one, but you. Wolf Blizzard. Without warning, Regulus roared and led the charge against Kiran. Whoosh! His figure instantly split into 3 and surrounded Kiran. His subordinates snapped to attention and rushed at Kiran as well. Ha ha ha! Regulus laughed maniacally. Kiran, I knew you guessed the truth, so I lured you closer to prevent you from attacking with silver needles from a distance. You've been tricked. His laughter filled the other Wolfgate members with pride and fighting spirit. Their trepidation instantly dissipated, and they lunged at Kiran, baring their teeth and waving their limbs like mad wolves. Kiran remained unmoved. He shook his head and sighed at Regulus's moving aftermatches. Still trying to show off your circus tricks. Whoosh! He sprang into the air, straight out of the encirclement, and landed behind his assailants. Farewell! He flung his palms out, and an overwhelming blast of strength erupted from him. As if propelled by an invisible force, the bodies of his assailants lurched forward uncontrollably. Bang! Bang! A series of crashes rang out, followed by the crack of bones and screams of agony. Regulus darted to the side, narrowly escaping the attack. However, his pupils dilated with shock. In the blink of an eye, his men had collapsed on the ground, either dead or paralyzed. Kiran York, EU. His mouth was dry, stricken with terror of Kiran. I'm going to avenge the York family. Kiran's voice was as cold as winter ice. How could you possibly avenge the York family on your own? Unwilling to yield, Regulus bellowed and charged again to grapple with him. Without even bothering to dodge, Kiran waved his right arm casually and swatted him away like a fly. Graw. Regulus spat out several mouthfuls of blood. He landed on the ground and staggered several steps back before regaining his balance. Cough. He doubled over in a coughing fit and fixed Kiran with a vigilant look. You. I don't want to waste my breath when I can easily crush you. Tell me what you know, and I'll let you die a swift death. Kiran stood before him like the Grim Reaper. Regulus could not help quaking all over. Still, he refused to give in and glared at Kiran, his gaze burning with fury. I don't want to waste time. Kiran stalked toward him. When he passed by a wailing Wolfgate member with a broken arm, he glanced down and asked any last words. The member gaped at him, but before he could react, Kiran lifted his foot. With a crack, the man's head separated from his body and sailed through the air toward the sea. The poor man did not even get the chance to scream. His body stayed in the same position, but his life had ceased. The other injured members felt their souls leave their bodies, and they stared at Kiran as if he were a deadly cobra. The once proud wolves were now no braver than mice. Regulus clutched his aching body and stared at Kiran, his face frozen with horror. Kiran's viciousness was beyond his imagination. Back when you were strong, did you kill the York family this cruelly too? Kiran asked airily, even as he lifted his foot and crushed the chest of a member with a broken leg. You why? Someone finally caved in and started howling. Please don't kill me. I never harmed your family. I was just an errand boy. I didn't kill a single member of your family. Mr. Wolf was the one who led the massacre of your family. Please have mercy on us. The threat of absolute strength and death triggered a deep fear that came from the bottom of their souls. Regulus was ashen and too frightened for his own life to stop his men from begging for mercy or confessing the truth. At this moment, Kiran was no different from a vengeful ghoul. Regulus's life was hanging on by a thread. Kiran regarded his dazed expression. All of them are saying you were the one who led the massacre. Regulus trembled, but he quickly fixed Kiran with a resolute look. I'm going to die anyway, so I'm not going to say anything. Just do it. Instead of getting angry, Kiran inclined his head. Not bad, as expected of Wolfgate's leader. I admire your spunk. With that, he surged forward, his hand grabbing for Regulus's throat. As Regulus backed away, he suddenly opened his arms. Even if I die, if you're thinking of dragging me down with you, you can forget it. Before he knew it, Kiran had flashed past him, and he was frozen him in place by a silver needle. Kiran York, you. Regulus's features contorted with humiliation and rage. Revenge is all I want. God or Satan, I'll kill anyone who stands in my way. Kiran's tone was even and unwavering. The veins on Regulus's forehead bulged, and his eyes blazed with hatred, but he could not utter a single word. At this moment, he was just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Tell me what you know, and I'll let you die a clean death. Kiran demanded coldly. Regulus shook his head. In your dreams, Snap. He was interrupted by the sound of his bones cracking. Eric. He gave an anguished shriek and glanced at his left arm, which was in severe pain. Although it was still attached to his shoulder, it felt like jelly. Kiran released his hold, and Regulus's fractured left arm sagged as if it was no longer part of his body. Regulus was so devastated he could hardly believe what had happened. His eyes bulging out of their sockets, he glared at Kiran and cried, "You cruel bastard." Nah. Kiran chuckled and shook his head calmly. This is just the beginning. Chapter 303. It was just the beginning. Those 5 words were like swords piercing Regulus's heart. He was in so much pain his heart felt like it was about to explode. Wolfgate's martial arts skills were weak. They relied solely on numbers and their cunning. They could fight ordinary enemies but had no chance against powerhouses like Kiran. Even Regulus, the most skilled martial artist in Wolfgate, had succumbed to Kiran's cruelty. His dreams were shattered, and he was in despair. Karma had caught up with him. Ha ha ha. Cough cough. Regulus was unwilling to give in. He burst into laughter, but a violent cough followed it. Without saying anything, Kiran calmly looked at Regulus, waiting for him to speak. I led my men to kill the last of your family, but I wasn't the cause of the York family's demise. Kiran smirked, but he did not respond. He looked uninterested. Kiran, if you want revenge, go after PowerHub Investment Group. Their financial attacks are the root cause of the York family's downfall. Regulus growled. When Kiran heard that, his eyebrows raised. Could PowerHub Investment Group be why the York family lost their financial support? Kiran quickly composed himself, but he did not respond to Regulus. Kiran, don't you hate PowerHub Investment Group? Regulus stared at Kiran with confusion. It doesn't matter whether what you said was true because PowerHub Investment Group is going to be destroyed anyway, Kiran said casually. Regulus could not accept it. He stared at Kiran for a few seconds and said, "Do you really want to avenge the York family?" Kiran nodded and said, "Of course. Then everyone in Imperial Dragon has to die. All of them are your enemies?" Regulus said coldly. "Ha!" Kiran scoffed. "Don't worry. I wouldn't have let the people in Imperial Dragon get away with it even if you didn't tell me. Do you know why they died?" Regulus responded to Kiran's answer calmly. "Nope." Kiran shook his head. "It's all because of Zara. If it hadn't been for her, the York family would not have become Imperial Dragon's enemy and perished." Regulus looked contemplative and overwhelmed with grief. Kiran lost his cool, and he looked grave. "Who's Zara?" "The previous leader of Foxgate. She's Lillian's master and mother." Regulus's eyes reflected a devious and sinister look, but Kiran was so consumed by hatred that he overlooked that detail. "Is Zara still alive?" Kiran asked coldly. "She's dead," Regulus said disappointedly. "Who's Lillian?" Kiran asked. "Lillian is the woman who stole Neptune's Cove karaoke from you," Regulus said, with a mixture of satisfaction and lingering resentment. "Lillian?" Kiran murmured. "Yes, she's Lillian," Regulus reiterated. "Why did Zara want to hurt the York family?" Kiran suddenly asked, hoping to catch Regulus off guard. "Because she had an affair with your father. Your father won over the most beautiful woman in Imperial Dragon, offending all the men there," Regulus explained. "Impossible," Kiran interrupted him coldly. He was the second person to say that his father had cheated on his mother with Zara. Kiran refused to accept this. "Have you seen Lillian's true face?" Regulus looked at Kiran and asked. Kiran shook his head. "No, I'm not interested." "It's not about whether you're interested. Once you see her, you'll understand what it means to fall head over heels for someone, and you'll know why your father risked the destruction of the York family for Zara," Regulus said contemplatively. Kiran's heart hurt so much it felt like needles were pricking it. When Henry told him that his father had an affair with Zara, he did not believe him. Now that Regulus told him this right before he was about to die, perhaps it was true. Both the money from PowerHub Investment Group and the strength from Imperial Dragon killed the York family. So if you want revenge, kill them, Regulus continued determinedly, looking at Kiran. Chapter 304. "What else do you know?" Kiran asked patiently, trying to hold back his anger. "That's all," Regulus said decisively. He could finally die now that he had dug a hole for Kiran. "Where is the Imperial Dragon's headquarters? What other forces are there?" Kiran glared at Regulus, making sure he did not lie to him. "You don't have to ask me this, Kiran. I won't tell you. After Wolfgate is destroyed, Imperial Dragon will send people to kill you. You'll know when the time comes." Cough, cough. After coughing several times, Regulus added, "Imperial Dragon will not stop until you're dead. On the other hand, you want to kill them for revenge. The cycle will just keep repeating itself." "Ha ha ha. Are you trying to leave me with all this hatred before you die?" Kiran asked Regulus mockingly. Regulus nodded frankly. "Yes. What I told you was the truth, but I'm also hoping that you will fall into a never-ending vendetta." "Not bad. That's more like it," Regulus said Kiran calmly. "Next." He looked at the injured man on the ground and said, "Whoever wants to live, go bring the members of the three big families here." "Me? I'll go." "I'll go too." Several men with broken arms but no fatal injuries stood up immediately. "You three go," Kiran said. The three of them ran fast to go get the people. Kiran turned to look at the dark ocean under the night sky. He was no longer paying attention to what was in front of him. All he could think about was PowerHub Investment Group and Imperial Dragon. Regulus stood on the spot, enduring the excruciating pain, wondering what Kiran was thinking. However, he knew his fate was sealed tonight. In less than 3 minutes, the people from the three families came out from below. Their jaws dropped in fear at the sight before them. Some of the kids were so frightened they started to cry. Kiran was enraged at the thought of the three families treating his father-in-law like a dog. He turned to Regulus and said, "When the York family was destroyed, they had to watch while their family died, right?" "Yes," Your father even kneeled and begged us to kill him first because he didn't want to see his family being killed. Ha ha ha. Even in his despair, Regulus could still remember how exhilarating it felt. So he burst into maniacal laughter. Kiran nodded and looked at the three families. Go kill the people lying on the ground. If you kill all of them, you live. If you don't, you die. Huh? The families and the injured members of Wolfgate gasped at the same time. Veins were bulging on Regulus's forehead. Kiran, you? You should be watching this scene while kneeling before me. After saying that, Kiran lifted his hands. Regulus went weak in the knees and plopped to the ground. Regulus had witnessed the exact same scene 20 years ago. It felt like a stab to his heart in the cruelest form of revenge in the world. 20 years ago, Kiran's father, Titus, kneeled in front of them like this, watching the York family being killed. Now, 20 years later, the leader of Wolfgate was the one kneeling on the ground, watching the people of Wolfgate getting killed. Not only that, but they were to be killed by the three families they had treated like animals. The humiliation was unbearable. Kiran, you? Kiran waved his hand and said, not a single person who owes the York family will be spared. He looked at the members of the three families, who were shocked out of their wits. Chapter 305. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kiran York. Kiran York. It was an unnecessary introduction, yet he did it so calmly and naturally. The introduction made the people of the three families feel nervous and cold, as if they were in Antarctica. Although they were being held, they knew what was happening in Bayville. Kiran was the Grim Reaper of the three families, and he was here to collect debt and seek revenge. They exchanged glances with fear written all over their faces. Are you all stupid? Are all descendants of the three families stupid? Kiran sneered. They were silent. None of them dared to refute Kiran. Kiran asked indifferently, who are the descendants of the Ziegler family? Whoosh! The crowd turned to a few people among them. They were trembling. They looked at Kiran fearfully, wanting to retreat. Kiran calmly said, I had fun killing Alfred and Fabian. A few turned pale when they heard that, but they dared not say a word as if they did not hear him at all. Don't you want to avenge them? Kiran asked jokingly. Several people bowed their heads in acknowledgement. Ha! Kiran chuckled and looked at Regulus kneeling on the ground. Do you know why you failed? Why? Regulus asked, enduring the pain of humiliation. You've raised this bunch of garbage, expecting them to run errands for Wolfgate. Don't you think that's fucking stupid? Kiran mocked. You can say all you want, but the winner takes all, Regulus said coldly, feeling humiliated. Kiran shook his head. You're wrong. How am I wrong? Regulus asked angrily. When the York family was wiped out, we were considered the losers. But can't you see that the Xander family had been protecting Bayville for the York family for 20 years? Kiran asked sternly. HMPH. If they didn't have people protecting them from behind, they would have been destroyed long ago. Regulus was unwilling to give up. Protect, Kiran said, pretending not to understand him. Kiran, I know you're using different methods to get information from me, but I'm telling you it's a waste of time. I will never tell you anything, Regulus said with determination. Kiran was disappointed. He was indeed trying to get information from Regulus, hence the effort spent in vain arguments. So you're not going to tell me? There was a sudden chill in Kiran's tone. Never, Regulus responded firmly. Then, kill them. Kiran looked at the three families and said. The three families looked at each other. No one dared to step forward and kill the members of Wolfgate. For the past few years, the people of Wolfgate were like gods to them, and they were nothing. To lay hands on a god was to court death. The people from Wolfgate sighed in relief. Did you not hear me? Kiran sneered and suddenly grabbed Cliff out of the crowd. Cliff was so frightened that he pleaded with Kiran. Don't kill me. Don't kill. Slap. Kiran slapped him. If you don't want to die, shut up. Cliff bit his tongue and covered his mouth to stop himself from speaking. You, go kill someone first. Kiran threw Cliff in front of an injured person and said, if you don't kill him, you'll die. Cliff hurriedly stood up and was wailing in his heart, unaware that Kiran picked him first because he kicked Michael. He looked down at the man from Wolfgate with the broken leg. He was so frightened that his soul left his body, and he took 2 steps back. Cliff, if you dare kill anyone, I'll kill you, Regulus threatened. Cliff trembled and looked at Kiran pleadingly. Kiran glanced at Forrest and said, if your father won't do it, you'll be the first to die. Thud. Forrest fell to the ground in fear. He waved his hands and shouted, no, don't. When Cliff heard he would kill his son, he immediately shouted, "I'll kill him. Cliff, do you want to die in my hands?" Regulus threatened. Chapter 306. Although the man with the broken leg was injured, he could still defend himself. So he growled, "If you dare touch me, I'll kill you." One, he lifted his other good leg and attacked Cliff. Cliff picked up a blade from the ground and swung it at the man's leg. Squelch! There was the sound of his legs being chopped off. Ugh. The man shrilled. Everyone shuddered. Cliff was covered in blood, but the smell of blood also ignited his survival instincts. He gripped the blade with both hands and kept his eyes shut tight while he slashed the men of Wolfgate. The miserable men from Wolfgate lifted their hands to block the attack, but their hands ended up getting slashed by the blade. Getting their limbs severed did not kill them, which made it all the more horrifying and painful. Ugh. Screams echoed throughout the entire place. At the height of the moment, Cliff kicked the man and killed him on the spot. The other injured men felt their hearts beating out of their chests, worried that they would be next. Even Regulus dared not speak, fearing he would be hacked to death. On the contrary, the scene before them ignited a desire to survive in the three families, and they were eager to try. Clang! Cliff dropped the blade and sat on the ground, exhausted. Never in his dreams had he ever imagined killing someone, let alone someone from Wolfgate. Clap, clap. Kiran clapped his hands and looked at Cliff. He smiled and said, "Not bad. You will be spared." Cliff felt as if he had just been through hell. He could not even bring himself to feel happy. Then, Kiran turned to the others and said, "If you don't want to die, what are you waiting for?" The three families suddenly released their pent-up anger as they rushed forward one after another. They all went berserk as they slashed barbarically at Wolfgate's men. Regulus kneeled on the ground, watching the scene unfold before his eyes. His heart tore apart, and he was almost choked to death with anguish. Although he did not hold deep affection for his subordinates, they had been with him for many years. Now that they were being hacked to death by the good-for-nothing members of the three families, it was unbearably humiliating. The veins on his forehead bulged as he shouted, "Kiran." The shouting abruptly stopped, and his eyes grew wide. Kiran was recording. What are you doing?" Regulus asked sharply. "I'm filming it to show the people in Imperial Dragon. The three families refused to give up on Imperial Dragon and tried to deceive me with their strategy. I don't know how Imperial Dragon would want to work with the three families after watching this video." Kiran jeered. "You, Tui." Regulus was so angry that he spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. "I didn't kill anyone." "Ha ha ha." Kiran laughed. "I'm not interested in killing these worthless people from Wolfgate." Regulus was speechless. He found breathing hard, like his chest stuffed with cotton balls. Kiran's methods were too extreme. He was trying to turn the three families and Imperial Dragon against each other. All the while, he thought that his plots against Kiran were smart, but Kiran had outsmarted him in the end. He had lost the game, and his life was hanging by a thread. It could not get even more tragic than this. "There's also another reason," said Kiran, smiling at Regulus. What is it?" Regulus dared not lash out at him lest he spurred out more blood. "When I return to Bayville, I'll show this video to the people who were held hostage by you. They'll appreciate what the three families did, and it'll help them find closure." Kiran smiled. "Hey, are you trying to get everyone in Bayville to team up and fight Imperial Dragon?" Regulus asked in shock. Kiran shook his head. "Who is it then?" "PowerHub Investment Group," said Kiran with an intense gaze. Regulus stared at Kiran in shock. Chapter 307. Kiran, the entire wealth of Bayville combined is nothing compared to PowerHub Investment Group. "It's impossible, so don't even think about it," Regulus growled. "Impossible. I wish that you could stay and see for yourself, but unfortunately, I'm more looking forward to your death." "I just do it already," Regulus yelled at Kiran. Kiran shook his head and looked at the three families who had just finished their killing spree. He asked, "Did Regulus take your children away the past few years?" "Children?" Boom. Kiran's words sounded like a nuclear explosion. Everyone fell silent and looked at Regulus. Some of the women started shedding tears as they were overwhelmed with longing for their children. They were the ones who gave birth to them, after all. "Where's my son? Where's my daughter? Where are my children?" The women gathered around Regulus and questioned him as if they had gone mad. Regulus did not expect Kiran to suddenly ask that. "How did he even find out about that?" "Fuck off. How dare you question me?" Regulus shouted angrily at them, wanting to terrorize them still. Fuck off. If he had said such words in the past, the women would immediately run away. After their killing spree, however, they could not care less. I'm doing this for my child. Me too. I'll stab you to death. The madwomen swung their blades at the same time. Regulus did not think that they would be crazy enough to try to kill him, so he chickened out. Nimbus hollows. Regulus closed his eyes and yelled, "Whoosh!" Regulus felt his body fly upward, so he quickly opened his eyes and saw Kiran had lifted him. He looked down at the crazy women stabbing the air, and some even stabbed each other. Some screamed in agony, while others convulsed and died on the spot. Regulus could feel his soul leave his body. He was afraid of dying too. Spare me, please. Are you afraid of dying? Kiran asked as if he was looking at a coward. Regulus was no longer as arrogant as he was. He nodded and said, "Yes. I'm scared of death." "Where's Nimbus Hollows?" Kiran asked coldly. It's... Regulus grew hesitant again as if afraid to speak of Nimbus Hollows. "You don't want to tell me." Kiran's smirk disappeared, and his gaze turned ominous. Regulus did not answer, but he said anxiously, "Kiran, you can't kill me. If you do, slap." Kiran threw Regulus on the ground as if tossing a dead body. "How dare you still speak nonsense to me?" Regulus could feel the murderous aura radiating off Kiran. He looked at all his men, who had been killed, and he was overwhelmed with despair. "Kiran, if you really want to know, ask Lillian. She knows." Kiran's face turned ice cold instantly. "Regulus, how could you fear death and not be willing to pay the price to spare your life?" Lying on the ground, Regulus felt as if his whole body was falling apart. He looked at Kiran and said, Ha ha, I know you won't spare me, so I won't say anything. Just do whatever you want. Where is Nimbus Hollows? I'll ask you one last time." Kiran still wanted to know. "Kiran, even if you go to Nimbus Hollows, you won't find it. You don't even know if you will leave Bayville alive. So why bother?" Regulus seemed to have it all figured out. "Come on. If you want to kill me, do it. I'm ready to die." Kiran was disappointed. He tried to get as much information as possible, but Regulus had given up on trying to save himself. At least he found out about Lillian and Nimbus Hollows. He walked up to Regulus, looked down at him, and snorted, 20 years ago. You never thought this day would come? Heh, Tui. Livid. Regulus spat a mouthful of blood and said to Kiran, "My only regret is leaving you as a remnant. If Zara hadn't interceded, I would have wiped out the Xander family too, so you wouldn't have had the chance to rise again. I didn't lose to you. I lost to the backward members of Imperial Dragon. It was them who ruined Wolfgate. Now that Wolfgate is gone, they will never discover the secret of Dragon's Mount." Kiran stared at the enraged and sorrowful Regulus, saying, "It's all in the past." Regulus got even angrier. "Kiran, someone must kill." Boom! There was a sound like a bursting watermelon, followed by the sight of red and white brain matter splattering in the air. With a single step, Kiran had crushed Regulus's head. Regulus's legs twitched a few times and stopped. Until he was dead, he could not believe that this was how he would die. The tables have turned. The life and death of many people have been in his hands, but he never expected that just a single stamp would decide his own life and death. Back then, he trampled over the York family as if they were caged animals. Now, he was crushed beneath Kiran's foot like a loathsome insect. Karma finally caught up with him. Regulus's Wolfgate will no longer exist after tonight. Once upon a time, Wolfgate had unrivaled dominance. They massacred the York family like they were slaughtering chickens, and they posed a dire threat to the three families in Bayville. Today, Wolfgate had sealed its fate, yet death came easily to them as they met a lowly death. For Kiran, this was the best outcome. Kiran would never let the people who deserved to die to get away. He would kill every single one of his enemies. The three families were so frightened that they completely disregarded the brain matter splattered all over their bodies and faces. Kiran had crushed his hard skull. Was he even human? Kiran instilled in them a fear that reached the depths of their souls. Kiran ignored their reaction and looked up at the sky, saying sadly, "Another enemy has died." At that moment, Kiran was like an emotionless killing machine. Regulus, whom he trampled to death, was just like an ant to him. Kiran turned to look at the frightened members of the three families and said, "Go live your life. Wait until the anniversary of the York family's death." He walked up to Forrest and picked him up like a chicken before walking toward the ocean. Wow! The remaining family members came to their senses. Some could no longer bear the smell of blood anymore and began vomiting nonstop. Soon, it produced a domino effect. Kiran had already taken Forrest with him and started the speedboat, heading toward Bayville. Hans's life may have been spared, but Kiran promised to castrate the man who coveted his wife, Snow. Forrest was his best bet. In a way, enemies were also best friends. Chapter 308. When Kiran returned to Bayville, he left Forrest and Xander Corporation and asked Onyx to have someone keep an eye on him. Afterward, he went to Marina Breeze Court. When he arrived, he looked up at the building and saw that the light in Snow's room was still on. Joy welled in his heart, knowing that Snow stayed up waiting for him to return. Perhaps this was what true love felt like, a simple life and an unpretentious love. Kiran took a deep breath and shook off all his pent-up energy. His murderous aura disappeared as he returned to a relaxed state. With a smile, he went upstairs and opened the door. In the next second, he was petrified. Snow and Serena were standing in front of the mirror, trying on underwear. That seductive posture, that magnificent figure, that sexy lingerie. If one did not know better, they might think this was a lingerie fashion show with stunning models. The women were also stunned by Kiran's sudden appearance. Snow squirmed and covered her body with her hands. Ha ha! Serena laughed, purposely flipping her gorgeous hair. She looked enchanting when she said, "Kiran, you're back." Although Snow screamed earlier, her shy expression vanished instantly, and it was replaced with pure joy and excitement. She dropped everything and ran over to hug Kiran. Then she started kissing him. Kiran was stupefied. Was that really his wife? Since when did she become so passionate? Serena stood behind them and winked at Kiran. She grabbed the clothes on the sofa and put them on. "Kiran, I took the weight off your shoulders and comforted Snow. Don't forget to thank me." Kiran was stunned. Snow had calmed down now, but her cheeks were burning hot. Snow was worried, knowing that Kiran was going to kill Regulus to save her father, especially after he had not returned since he left this morning. Not long after he left, Serena came over and chatted with her. When they talked about Kiran, Serena said that Kiran had not made a move on Snow because she was not charming enough. Snow's pride and self-esteem took a hit. She refused to accept it, so she started devising a plan with Serena on how to charm Kiran. A few hours had passed without them realizing it. Now, realizing that Serena was trying to distract her from her worries, she felt a little embarrassed. Kiran could sense Snow's embarrassment, so he hugged her and looked at Serena, who was walking to the door. "I've got to hand it to you this time. Do I get a reward?" Serena stopped and smiled charmingly. "Yes." "What is it?" Serena said expectantly. "Inform the 3 families to pick up their families on the island," Kiran ordered. Serena was speechless. Her pretty face was filled with anger as she gave Kiran the middle finger. Kiran turned a blind eye and kissed Snow. Infuriated, Serena made a dismissive gesture and opened the door, going downstairs to her place. However, she was secretly glad that Kiran was back home safe. That was more than enough for her. Dressed, when only the 2 of them were left, Snow pushed Kiran away and said, "I'm going to get clothes." Kiran teased, "Since only the husband and wife are left, shouldn't we be taking off our?" Snow's beautiful eyes widened. In the next second, she stamped her feet and said embarrassedly, "Shut up. Close your eyes right now." "There's no use closing my eyes." Kiran smiled. "Why?" Snow was fuming. "You're already in my heart," Kiran whispered. "You." Snow was touched. Her eyes got teary, and she hugged Kiran again. Kiran hugged her back tightly and carried her in his arms, saying, "Let's go have sex." "No!" Snow exclaimed, but she could feel her whole body relaxing. Soon after, she fell asleep. Kiran knew Snow had been worrying all day, so she needed to sleep. He embraced her and used his inner energy to help her relax before finally putting her to bed. He tucked her in and went downstairs to take a bath. Beep beep. Kiran had just hopped into the bath when his phone buzzed. "Serena." "Kiran, please reply." Kiran did not think much about it, so he replied, "What's up?" Then, Serena started smiling. Kiran was confused. Not long after, he received a call. He answered and said, "What is it?" "Aren't you sleeping with Snow?" Serena pried. "Don't you have better things to do?" If he were sleeping with Snow, he would not be answering her call. "Kiran, Have you fallen for someone else? Serena sounded curious. I'm hanging up. Don't. How can you not want to sleep with her when she's dressed so sexily? How could you call yourself a man? Serena said. Kiran had no words. When she told him not to hang up, he thought she might have something important to say. But in the end, she told him off for not being a man. It's none of your business. She's my wife anyway, Kiran said to irritate Serena. When Serena heard that, she burst into laughter. Kiran, I have some Viagra pills and Cialis pills at home. Do you want some? Kiran was speechless. That mad woman was saying that he could not get it up. I'm hanging up. Kiran hung up. Meanwhile, Serena was lying on her bed, smiling to herself. Oh, Kiran, I didn't think you were such a romantic. You must be truly in love with Snow. Kiran did not know what to do with Serena. He put his phone down and relaxed in the bath while he cleared his mind. Now that Michael and Shannon had been rescued, he was less concerned about the Xander family. After his battle with Lillian 2 days later, Xander Corporation will start operating again. Then, his target would be PowerHub Investment Group. He was going to destroy both the company and the heir, Hans. Kiran made up his mind that as long as Hans was in Bayville, he would turn him into a eunuch. His mind was filled with sinister thoughts. After finishing his bath, he went into Snow's room. He wanted to tease her, so he went in with only his underwear. Snow was unaware, so she automatically curled up in his arms and fell asleep. Kiran fell asleep soon too. In the Simmons residence, Hans's face was gloomy, and a deadly aura radiated from him. His cruise party in Bayville was a journey to hell. He almost died in Swallow Bay. Looking back at it now, he was filled with not only fear but anger too. However, there was nowhere to vent his anger because he was the one who made the decision even after Marshall persuaded him not to. The arrogant Hans was livid, so he shifted the blame onto Snow. If not for that woman, the cruise party would not even happen. The thought of Snow reminded him of Michael, and his eyes gleamed. Chapter 309. Hans looked at Marshall, who was standing next to him, and asked, Was Michael brought back with us? Marshall quickly replied, Yes, he's in our house. Good. Bring him over here, Hans ordered happily. Marshall trotted outside and brought Michael over along with the 2 men who rescued Hans and the others. When the men came in, they let go of Michael and said to Hans respectfully, Hello, Mr. Ludwig. Hans nodded politely to the man who saved his life and said, Go find out about Regulus and his whereabouts. I want him dead. Yes, sir, the 2 men responded. Kill his men too, Hans added. Yes, sir, the men agreed and went out. Meanwhile, there was fear behind Michael's eyes. He was not the real Michael. He was a member of Wolfgate. His pressure points had been unblocked, so he could speak now, but he pretended he could not because he still did not know what was going on. After hearing that Hans was going to kill Regulus and the other members of Wolfgate, he feared that he would be killed too. In the end, he simply decided to pretend that he was Michael and await his fate. Hans did not notice the change in his expression, let alone figure out what he was thinking. He looked at Michael, and the anger on his face turned into a faint smile. Are you Michael Xander? Snow's father. When the fake Michael heard the man's tone and saw the expression on his face, he was glad that he made the right call. The man seemed nice to Michael. He had been on the island for many years, so he knew how Michael was. He immediately acted nervous and fearful, asking, who are you? Hans was not surprised to see Michael nervous and scared. Now, he was even more convinced that he was Snow's father. So he said, Mr. Xander, don't be afraid. My name is Hans Ludwig. I'm Snow's college classmate. The fake Michael was secretly over the moon. He made the right bet, which saved his life. If he could escape, everything would be all right. He immediately said, Hello? I didn't think that you kids would be so grown up now. I haven't seen Snow in over a decade. He got teary-eyed, and his voice choked with emotion. He made himself look sad and emotional. Hans kindly comforted him. Mr. Xander, don't be sad. I rescued you to reunite you and your family. Thank you so much. You're too kind. The fake Michael sobbed to express his gratitude. Hans pretended to look as if he missed Snow a lot. He said, Time goes by so fast. I haven't seen Snow in 2 years. I wonder how she's doing. He expressed his longing for Snow in one simple sentence while he looked at Hans out of the corner of his eyes to see his reaction. The fake Michael could tell that Hans liked Snow very much. So he said, Take me to see Snow. I'll make her your girlfriend. If you like her, I'll even let her marry you. Hans was immediately elated. He had been waiting for Michael to say that, and Michael had told him exactly what he wanted to hear. So Hans instantly said, "Thank you, Mr. Xander. I really do love Snow." The fake Michael patted his chest and said, "Although I haven't seen her in 15 years, I believe that she would say yes after you saved my life. She may even agree to marry you." Ha ha ha. Hans grinned from ear to ear and blurted to Marshall, "Prepare some food and drinks immediately. I'd like to have a few drinks with Mr. Xander." Marshall wanted to remind him that Snow was Kiran's wife, but he dared not spoil the fun, so he nodded and ran off to get the food ready. Chapter 310. Hans clung to the fake Michael, and all he talked about was Snow. The fake Michael did not know a thing about Snow. He just said that he would have her marry Hans. Hans was pleased that was just what he wanted to hear. They continued chatting and drinking happily as if they were already in-laws. Before Hans and the fake Michael parted ways, they agreed that Hans would propose to Snow at Xander Corporation tomorrow morning. He had to live up to his name as the son of the Ludwig family, so he asked Marshall to prepare everything for the proposal. He wanted it to be grand and lavish. Marshall immediately got it done. Marshall wanted to tell Kiran about it, but since it was late, he did not. Kiran was unaware that the guy he wanted to turn into an eunuch would be proposing to Snow at Xander Corporation tomorrow. Enemies would always find their way back to each other. That was how it was. If Kiran knew that Hans would personally show up and propose, he would have been laughing in his sleep. The next morning, Snow woke up and saw Kiran's bare chest in front of her when she opened her eyes. Suddenly, her head was buzzing. Did they do it last night? Her mind went blank, and she bolted upright, only to find the other half of her numbed body was pinned down by Kiran. She let out a soft gasp. Kiran opened his eyes and laughed when he saw Snow's adorable, nervous face. When Snow saw how little Kiran was wearing, her head was spinning. Shit, she was doomed. They really did it. She did not mind sleeping with Kiran, but the problem was that she did not know how it happened. Was her first time just gone like that? She wiggled her body and felt no discomfort. She thought that Kiran must have helped her relieve the discomfort since he was a doctor. In the next second, a thought popped into her mind. Kiran seemed experienced. Where did his experience come from? Snow was instantly filled with jealousy. She turned to look at Kiran and saw him staring at her with a smug smile. She was even more certain now that Kiran had done it before, and that she was not the first woman he slept with. Kiran was her first love and first time, but it turned out that Kiran was just a second-hand item. Anger rose to her head, and she said, "Fucking bastard." After cursing at him, she bit him. When Kiran saw Snow sitting there in a daze, he figured something was wrong, but he did not expect her to attack him all of a sudden. He immediately rolled over to the side and said, "Honey, you can't molest me." Molest? Snow could feel herself fuming. That bastard took advantage of her and claimed she was the one molesting him. Anger rushed to the top of her head. Jerk! She pounced on him again. Kiran was shocked. What was going on? Was she mad that nothing happened between them last night? Was that why she went crazy and wanted to kill him? Was this what they called an untamed beast? If that was the case, he would be sapped dry. He gave her a wry smile and said helplessly, "Honey, I'm sorry." One? Sorry. Hearing that word made Snow even more upset. A second-hand man slept with her, and all he could say was sorry. He did not even give her an explanation. "Kiran, I hate you." She picked up the pillow and threw it at him. Kiran caught the pillow and looked at Snow dejectedly. "Honey, are you that eager for me to sleep with you?" Snow was speechless.